It's the Anfield Wrap on Radio City Talk. Any other day, we'd probably be talking about these TV fixture changes. Just to run through very, very quickly for you. 8 of Liverpool's fixtures in December or January have been moved. Paul, is this the first you've heard?
Yeah, chocker.
Paul Senior, Mike Nevin and Josh Sexton. So, Paul, all right, then Mike and Josh both know, so I'll just do you one at a time. Bournemouth's gone to 1:30 Sunday. Good or bad?
Saturday night out. A late wake up for that one, mate. That's all right.
I'd take that as well. West Ham is now at home on December the 11th, 4:30.
Yeah, that's all right.
On the Sunday. They moved the derby.
Do you know what the 2 games before it are, if it's an 4:30?
No. Right. Come on, Paul. The derby, they've moved the derby to Monday night.
Yes.
You're happy with that? Mike
yes.
Nevin's not happy because he's in work the next day.
That doesn't affect me really, but yeah, wow. That Man United and Everton on a Monday night, I like that.
Okay, and next one is Liverpool against Man City has gone to New Year's Eve, 5:30.
Oh, you're messing.
5:30 New Year's Eve.
That's not good for me.
It's not good for the trade, is it, Paul?
No, not at all. No.
You got to think about the trade in these matters. Liverpool are set to
still going like.
Set to, of course, you are to go to Old Trafford to face Man United on the 15th of Sunday, the 15th of January. That's now 4:00.
Sunday 4:00, yeah.
You'd expect that.
I don't want any 12 o'clocks, so this is all good.
Well, there's one 12 o'clock to come, but I think we can find the positive in it. Chelsea is now Tuesday night, 8 p.m. It was going to be Wednesday night.
Good.
Makes no odds.
Night game at Anfield.
Night game at Anfield. But the big one, the game they're calling the big one, BT Sport are going to cover it this way. It's the 12:30 kick-off on Saturday the 21st of January, Swansea at home, otherwise known as my birthday. 12:30 kick-off on my birthday.
Could be ruinous for Akko.
Imagine if the Reds win and go top. Imagine if the Reds win and go top.
I've just booked a week off.
Let's we might well have to find a new host for the Anfield Wrap.
I was just going to say, or otherwise look forward to a cracking main show on the Monday. Yeah. With Akko topping up.
Maybe done from for Zackley. So yeah, that's your fixture moves. We're not going to go any more into the detail on that. We do the opening question. Josh Sexton, I've decided out the opening question just while I've been sitting here and talking to you, and it is, what is your favourite ever goal? Liverpool goal against Manchester United. What's your favourite ever Liverpool goal against Manchester United? You must have heard of them. They play at Old Trafford.
I'd probably say, and I've got a bit of a weird backing story behind it as well. I'm going to go with Andrea De Sena's chip over Edwin van der Sar at Old Trafford.
You don't even need the backing story.
And the reason is because I was sat in the United end at Old Trafford and I stood up when it went in and started laughing. And the amount of like evil eyes and sort of funny looks out of the corner of the eyes I got was.
They were all getting off, weren't they?
Oh yeah, by that point, yeah. But for the most part, I was just. Yeah, it was one of them moments. Just remember that moment, definitely.
Remember it fondly. It's also one of those fabulous goals where the ball bounces between the goal line and the net, if I remember rightly. And for me, that's a special category of goal where the ball bounces between the goal line and the net. Mike Nevin, what's yours?
I've got one where the net was almost certainly stretched to its limits, and it's got to be Jan Molby's famous lost goal of 1985-86, the one that was in the attic for 25 years until Jan got it out.
When it came out of the loft, and you saw the video back, did you go, yep, that's broadly how I remembered it? Or had it been built up in myth and legend in your mind? No,
it was. I mean, it stood the test of time, and the sort of the rumour about it that, as I say, was like a mythical goal. Really, obviously, only people who were at the game had seen it. Really, but it certainly lived up to its expectations. I mean, anyone who hasn't seen it, there's a 35-yard run. Past about 4 or 5 players before probably the hardest hit shot I've ever seen in professional football, and the YouTube vid, although it's grainy, it does it justice. It's just incredible. And
I'm gonna have to get on this.
The let off rather in the cop it's a shame that it is as grainy as it is, because you don't quite appreciate the extent of the celebration. But nonetheless, you can still sense it. It's mad. It's definitely one for younger viewers and listeners. Yeah,
I think I like the well struck shot, the hardest hit shot. I think we've sort of, because there's so many things now, so many different bits of football that you look at and you analyse, we've lost the joy of a lad blamming it.
Oh, definitely.
I love a lad who absolutely... That's why, for instance, I used to love watching Van Nistelrooy finish. Not against us, but he'd kick the ball in from 8 yards pretty much as hard as I could ever kick any ball ever in my life.
Yeah.
Harder. You know, he would absolutely welly it along the deck into the back of the net. And there's a lot to be said for someone kicking it between the two white things so hard no one can really cope.
Yeah, I think as like fans and pundits, you get a bit obsessed with this placement idea and people talking about...
I think players do now.
Hitting the side netting or the corner of the net and everything, but sometimes, and I think people perhaps overestimate the art of finishing. There's nothing better than hitting the ball as well as you can. You get this cliche about he's hit it too well, and you can see the reasoning behind that. Sometimes you can bounce past a keeper who doesn't quite anticipate what you've just done, but generally speaking, if you hit the ball true and well, goes in.
There's a lot to be said for it, Paul Senior. We're going to talk about that in a minute in the context of David De Gea. What's your favourite goal against Manchester United?
I've got a couple. Obviously, John Allen Reese's goal stands out in my mind. I like Gerrard's when he blams it past Barthez, but my favourite's probably Michael Owen in the League Cup, 2003.
Oh, the winner.
The winner in the final. 16, first cup final I think I went to without my dad. I went with my mates and had a good day of it. So yeah, I think that's...
The forgotten League Cup final.
Yeah.
Dudek's fantastic performance, that one. Excellent stuff all round. And let's talk about De Gea. We've had... one of my hopes... go Mike Nevin first on this, actually. One of my hopes is that what the Europa League victory did was it removed for Liverpool the mystique of De Gea, which was, I felt, beginning to build. The idea that you had to basically score a goal like Benteke used to score past this fella, I felt was something that had begun to sort of settle into Liverpoolian psyches from December 2014 when Balotelli and Sterling miss about 1 billion chances at Old Trafford in that mad 3-0 where Rodgers plays 3 at the back. Liverpool's performance increases markedly, but they can't put the ball past De Gea. And since then, there's the Lallana miss, a bad miss when they came to Anfield later in the season. There was the league games last season where he keeps these 2 clean sheets, apart from the late Benteke effort. And I always felt that people were worrying too much about what it was they were trying to do, trying to place it into the corner, put it in the side net, and because of De Gea. And I just hope the Europa League has relaxed everyone's mind that, you know what, this fella's just a goalkeeper. Yeah. He is going to save some. He might be a really good one. But in the same way that, for instance, Pogba's a really good centre midfielder, even, Suarez had bad days or had things he couldn't do, and when he was he is one of the best players in the world. You know what I mean? He's just one goalkeeper.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt he's an exceptional goalkeeper, and he's, as you say, he's got a good track record against Liverpool. But I mean, the 2 goals in the Europa League, and obviously one was a pen, and he did make a couple of good saves in the first half. Can't quite remember who from, but certainly there were a couple of notable saves, and there was one from Coutinho from 25 yards, which was on the volley, which was an outstanding save. But nonetheless, I think the clinching goal for me, sort of tapping it in, just quite relatively easy from 5 or 6 yards, very refreshing. And then, of course, there's in the second leg, Coutinho dinking him and beating him at his near post, which is it was a great goal, but he's exposed a little bit, and I think
make a show. I mean, it's back, if that was again the if that was Mignolet thing, which would maybe all now begin to say a little bit too much. But if that was Mignolet, he'd have got slaughtered.
He'd have been crucified for that. And I must admit, I've not watched as much of United this season as I probably should have done. But I don't know. I don't know if he's had a slight drop off this season, and they haven't lost many games by any means, but. I think that sort of the mythology around him is just becoming a little bit more attuned to realism. As you say, he's just another goalkeeper. Yeah, I mean, albeit a good one.
He could be one of the best in the world, Josh. It's important to say he can be one of the best in the world, but as I say, you can be. There's going to be a lot of players who are amongst you, who are on both sides, really, Liverpool versus Manchester United, of whom you can say they're one of the best in the world at what they do. It's just sort of allowing for the fact that, again, it's because we sometimes see goalkeepers as almost like they're aliens in some way. Allowing for the idea that he can still be one of the best in the world and he could still concede 3 goals.
Yeah, and Mike did a piece on the site the other week about goalkeepers and how people sort of use this he can make a save like it's a shot stopper sort of thing as a bit like that's a minimum requirement. So for Mignolet, he's just a good shot stopper. There's nothing else he can do. Whereas I think De Gea's got like so much more to his game. If you're asking me, imagine Buffon, De Gea, and Neuer that your top 3 keepers in the world, then I'd be saying that I'd probably behind Buffon. If you literally were just giving him to me now and it was for like immediate success, I'd say I want De Gea because Neuer would just scare me every single game.
There is an element of that with Neuer, Paul, but it's put in the context that we're going to be playing. I think we're going to create chances. That's the thing. I think that's what a lot of this football's about. It's about creating chances. It's about creating a number of them. So then it becomes about taking those chances. And therefore, I want to see... And I think that the injuries, whilst the injuries are mildly problematic for Liverpool, you don't want to see an injured player. But I like the notion that our cool heads are going to be on the pitch. Sturridge is going to be on the pitch. Firmino's going to be on the pitch. Coutinho's going to be on the pitch. These are lads you're able to say have been cool heads. Mane has... One of the things I've actually most liked about him is his composure in front of goal. I think cool heads around the penalty area are what Liverpool needs.
Yeah, and I mean, we've been free scoring for the best part of 12 months. Now as well, so yeah, I think what is it this season? We're averaging three or four a game. So we're not bad at putting the ball in the back of the net. So obviously he's a bit more of an obstacle to overcome. But as you said, I think the wall's been broken down a little bit with him. So I'm interested to see how it fares. You can see this fixture sort of becoming something where Mourinho would just quite like to spoil and have a 0-0, but he's probably aware that he may not be able to do that with Liverpool at the moment. Yeah,
I think that just going back to the league game at Anfield last season and just continuing on the De Gea theme, but also Liverpool's free scoring run that Paul speaks of there over the last 12 months. It was that game where we drew a blank. De Gea made a couple of good saves. We had a few chances and ended up losing 1-0. For me, that was almost the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of frustration, our own frustration suddenly being dispelled in anger in many ways. And I think in the subsequent weeks, we got 5 at Norwich, and then we got 6 at Villa, and there were the 3s and 4s. Stoke, the 4 at home to Stoke, 4 at home to Everton. That was where the sort of the more expressive attacking Liverpool came through, and I think it was possibly a reaction to losing against United in that January fixture. And I also think that getting them in the Europa League to dispel some of that was really critical. I think people were really looking forward to that game because we'd seen us compete over the 90 minutes against them in the league, but not get the result that we deserved. And again, referring back to the 3 that we got against them in Europe, then that's set us up, and we've gone on from there, and we've become tighter at the back since then without losing any of the goal output.
I think that period you talk about, spot on, to be honest with you, Mike. I think that's when I think Firmino clicked a little bit then. I think Norwich especially is when he sort of arrived at Liverpool
in that,
properly,
didn't he?
Yeah. But then I remember going into that game thinking, where'd you get the goals from in this side? But then Milner pops up with 1, Henderson pops up with 1, and Lallana pops up with 1. So you think to yourself, well, and to be honest with you, I don't think Lallana's really looked back since then. So he added goals to his game where he didn't have them at all, and then obviously Firmino from then on, he's been about 1 and 2, hasn't he? So
well, that's this is a key thing to talk about the goals for this game, Josh. Is that this Liverpool side now, you're able to look at it and feel as though it's got goals from absolutely all over the park. I mean, it's sort of half waiting for the right back to chip in, and apart from that, you can say, well, you feel as though anyone could pop up with one.
That's the thing. I'm not sure how you stop that as an opposition manager and as an opposition team, because you can. Whereas in the past we've maybe had Suarez or Torres or Gerrard, and you sort of say if you take them out of the game, then you'll likely get a win or you'll get a result. There's not really one person that you can put your finger on in this team and say if you shut him down you'll win the game, because you shut Firmino down you'll get Coutinho and Mane coming at you and vice versa.
People were saying about Sturridge, weren't they, about when Rodgers used to go, well, Sturridge is back now, we'll be alright. Well, he hasn't scored all season, and we're still goals galore. So there's goals on the side now without having to. It's across the board, isn't it? You're not having to rely on one guy, and I think that's why we're doing better.
I do think it's important. I think it might be convenient for Liverpool on Monday that there are doubts around Lallana, less so, but Wijnaldum's fitness, and I think I think that if Sturridge has to play because you want to play the same system and 1 or 2 of them are out, I think that suits us, because if it comes down to a game where they are tough to break down, then sometimes you do have to rely a little bit on that individual brilliance as opposed to the more fluent sort of team play and creating chances that we've had all season. There's absolutely nothing wrong for once us doing a Man U on them and just getting a goal out the blue, and if there's a man who can actually do that, it's Daniel Sturridge, and I really hope he plays.
OK, this is the Anfield Wrap on Radio City Talk. After the break, we'll be hearing from Steve Armstrong from United We Stand about United so far this season. Indeed, Steve Armstrong, always good to speak to him. And speaking to him before Liverpool versus Manchester United, and it's one of those. It feels a funny game for me, Steve. You and I had a pint the other night and we had a chat, and one of the things you said to me, and I passed it off as my own wisdom later in the show, but one of the things you've said to me is it'd suit United for this not to be Monday night, for it to be Sunday lunchtime or something like that. There is that feeling, isn't there, that that there's the crowds are going to demand a certain thing out of Liverpool early on in the game, and that it'd be better for United if it was if it was an easier game to kill the crowd in.
Yeah, Klopp's good at drumming up that kind of frenzy, and you chuck in there then obviously evening games, floodlights, etc., and obviously the fact of who it's against. It's going to be, it's going to be mental, and it'll be like what we experienced in the Europa League last season. So yeah, I can see that. I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of it's been well documented about what happened at that game in terms of chanting and various other things, and it did probably spill over into the not nice level, which it then repeated itself. But yeah, there is always something about the night games, public games, and that. And as I said to you the other night, I would probably feel a lot more happier if it was a lunchtime on a Sunday where it's a bit mute, it's a bit because Anfield, a bit like Old Trafford it is a different place when it's a night game. So yeah, that atmosphere piece is going to, I think, pose the biggest challenge, because United, I think, absolutely wilted under that atmosphere last season in the Europa League. I think United are built of stronger stuff now. I would expect players, there's some experienced, expensive players who've kind of been there and done a lot. You'd expect them to be able to deal with that, but it is certainly going to be a factor that United have got to contend with. It's
going to be a factor, but Mourinho's done the Anfield thing. I remember he came into a very hostile Anfield on New Year's Day once, and he dealt with a hostile Anfield at the end of 13-14. The manager's not going to wilt under it. Yes, he's lost games in those sorts of circumstances and those sorts of hostile atmospheres, but there's something I keep saying about United repeatedly, whoever I'm speaking to, which is that if you take away the Manchester Unitedness for 1 second, if you were talking about a manager who's gone into a club that last season was quite depressed, and he was getting them at just shy of 2 points a game, and he was moving them forwards and developing the style of play, then if it wasn't Man United, Bayern Munich, Barcelona or Real Madrid, then and a Manchester United who just spent a lot of money on a few footballers, then everyone would say, well, he's doing a really, really good job. And that's the thing about being Manchester United, or being Liverpool for that matter, is that the expectations are always different because of the nature of the club.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. I think it's I think I said to you that it's been really quite fascinating to sit there and watch him start to put this little jigsaw puzzle together, and you can see he's doing it right. Obviously, what has magnified the expectation is that I think if he'd have just inherited what was there last year and built it up, I think United fans would have just taken anything. But to see the club getting back to its former glories in terms of playing style and all that kind of stuff, obviously the expectations when you're signing Mkhitaryan, Pogba, Ibrahimovic, etc., is that expectation goes up even higher. I think, if anything, it's probably made his job more challenging, because he's trying to work out who fits best where. And it has been quite fascinating to watch. It's been a little bit stuttery. I think I said, there was a lot of overindulgence in the we're going to do this, we're going to do that after the Hull win that gave us sort of 3 out of 3. But it's been a bit stop-start since then. But I do think that you mentioned the Mourinho not going to wilt thing. This is at the minute a slightly different Mourinho to what most people are used to. He looks. I still maintain, I think I've said this a number of times, the size of what is asked of you at Manchester United in terms of profile, not just in terms of the coaching and playing stuff, it's also what you're asked to do, given its global profile and stuff. And I just think the size of the club at the minute, and I know he's been at big clubs before, but I think what's different in this country is the media and what the media do to you at big clubs and the profile of that. It's a different Mourinho than what I think we're being used to. Do I think he'll come good? Do I think he'll crack it? Absolutely. But this isn't the I don't care what the world thinks and I will take you all on and win that you saw at Chelsea, because ultimately he was at Chelsea. No one really cares too much about Chelsea. It doesn't have anything like the profile that United or Liverpool have got. I think this time round, I think he's coming in. I want to see the Mourinho that doesn't give a damn about the rest of the world. I want to see him being brash. I want to see him being, the kind of bloke that came into the Premier League and kind of turned heads. at the minute, we're not seeing that. We're seeing kind of somebody who's trying to keep out in the limelight. You know, he's not like, you know, he's not making as many sort of box office headliney type of things. He's got his head down, and he seems to be just working hard at his job of being the manager of Manchester United. So it'll be interesting to see just what he's like in terms of how he handles that. Because I do think, we're not talking sort of David Moyes rabbit in the headlights. I do think, though, that there's definitely been an element of he's looking at United and going, Jesus, this is a big job for me, this. So, and we're not dealing with the same Mourinho, I don't think, that we've been used to, but I do think he'll come.
Can I, on that, I mean, I don't want to just talk about Mourinho because United have got loads of footballers, and let's be honest about this will be decided by 11 against 11, not 2 managers. But on the Mourinho thing, the thing I've been wondering so far, in terms of the way in which he's taken his time, and he's taken his time over certain players, and, you know, I thought that when Mata was out, that'd be it for Mata, but he's brought him back in. There's the question marks around Mkhitaryan. But one of the things that's but Mkhitaryan, he's obviously wanted to buy him. One of the things that's in my mind is whether or not there's something in Mourinho's head, which is that he's at Manchester United, and for possibly for the first time in his career, he might be thinking about 5 and 6 years. And not just thinking about almost like the next match or the next 3 games or the next 10 games or one season followed by 2. Do you know what? I just wonder if he's suddenly, and whether or not, for instance, having talents like Rashford around and all that sort of stuff is making him think, you know what, I might be, this could be me now, this could be me until I decide to go and be Portugal manager, because what else is there?
We spoke ages back and we said, we think this will be his last ever club job. And you think about it, probably with the exception of Bayern Munich, there is nowhere else for him to go and tick off on his list, unless you're talking about one of these gimmicky going in a wedge in the States type of jobs. But yeah, I totally do. I think this will be his last club job. I also think, however, that he's got the stage, he's got the atmosphere, he's got the ground, he's got the size of club that probably floats his boat. It's almost like the wandering star who suddenly found, God, this is what I've been looking for my whole life type of situation. You know, and I actually do think that there is the possibility that this could be a long haul thing for Mourinho. What obviously made a lot of the headlines that here was typical Mourinho was the fact that within no time at all, out comes the checkbook and we're buying everybody left, right and centre. And everybody just jumps onto, well, that's what Mourinho does. You know, he doesn't build for the future. That wasn't building. That wasn't just trying to buy instant success. That was plugging massive, big, gaping holes in a broken Manchester United. And that's what happens, unfortunately, when you leave something uncared for and uninvested in. At some point, you are going to have to plough a lot of funds back in there just to get you back to even, and that's what he had to do. So I think your point about, it's more his approach. You know, he's not like he's throwing everything around. He's been quiet. He's been quite controlled. He has taken his time to have a look at some players. And this is why I keep using the analogy of it's like watching him work a puzzle out. He's not coming here with this whole intention of, you know, I know what I'm doing it. He thinks he's looking at what's there and going, right, where does this fit? Where does that fit? And slowly but surely, you can see him suddenly going and doing all of the things that most people thought he wouldn't do. You know, he's clearly worked out that Daley Blind is a fantastic footballer that, you know, United have to play. He's worked out that Ander Herrera is actually pretty good and we should try and build around him. He's worked out that Juan Mata is really good and has done something there. He's worked out that Wayne Rooney, unfortunately, for all his greatness, he's probably past it now and no longer a starter at the club. And he's dealt with that decision. So bit by bit, you're seeing all these little decisions starting to come together. And at some point, you think, when that starts to click, you know, there's a lot of exciting times ahead for United, I think, with the way this is going.
And that's an important thing. I think that's the strange thing, I think, from afar, is the notion of the journey, which I think is, you know, is something which might just now be a necessary part of being a football manager all of a sudden, because one of Liverpool, Manchester United, Manchester City, Tottenham and Arsenal are not going to finish in the top 4 this season. It literally, that's the mathematics. 4 of the 5 clubs I've just mentioned are not going to win the league. You know, and I haven't even included Chelsea in that. You know, the idea of the journey, Steve, is something which I know you're very into, and it's something that you're very sort of switched on about in terms of just the way in which people live their lives as much as anything else, and the way in which organisations are run. And suddenly United, from being a club who'd sort of surpassed the journey, Ferguson took them on the journey and then got them to the promised land. And broadly speaking, if we're all honest about it, Ferguson kept Manchester United the promised land. Now there's the situation wherein, you know, that journey back to the promised land is as much part of the process of being a Manchester United supporter, a Manchester United player, a Manchester United executive, a Manchester United coach, and a Manchester United manager than it has been since probably about 1991.
totally agree with you. I think, you look at the whole piece here. I mean, football, you mentioned Ferguson. I've said a number of times to you yourself and a lot of the other lads over at your end is, I actually believe that Ferguson had probably the best side in 6, maybe 7 of his 13 title-winning seasons. He was that difference. Liverpool, at the minute, the difference is Jurgen Klopp and the way he's leading and managing that club. The difference at United in the last 3 years, let's face it, still strong squads, still very talented squads. The reason that we finished 7th was because of David Moyes. The reason we played some of the most mind-numbingly bad football I've ever watched was because of Louis van Gaal. The manager is absolutely everything at a club. We've got a manager who, I think, knows what is needed now. I think he's got a plan. I think he's looking longer term. And I actually think he's not a stupid man either. He's a very, very, very intelligent man. And he'll get what's expected of him with regards to not just the results, but he'll know that there's a standard of play issue. There's a code of conduct that he'll have to tell the line with. He knows that United have obligations to satisfy people who don't go to Old Trafford every week like we do. He gets the whole thing. And I think the way he's going about it is, I've been really impressed with it, I have to say, even though it's not necessarily, we have that period of a couple of wins and a couple of defeats. But by and large, United have played pretty well. Unbeknown to many people, United have had more shots at goal this season than any other club. Nobody talks about that because it's not fashionable to associate that to a Jose Mourinho team. With the exception of that game against Watford where we just didn't turn up, which, a noon kick-off on a Sunday after a Thursday night or a European away game, you get that kind of result, you get that kind of performance. So, it's not, we were very, very, very good against Stoke and it just didn't click. So, by and large, it's not anything like what people are portraying they are. So he's got his plan, he's got it mapped out, he's going about it in a controlled way. I like the fact that, you take Southgate the other night, he couldn't wait to slag Hodgson off, which I know you lot were probably all buzzing about, but he was very, very quick to say and inherited a mess. Mourinho's not said a peep. He's walked in, he's analysed what's in front of him like a good boss, a good manager, a good leader should do. He's got a plan, and he's kind of working his way through it bit by bit. And I actually think this is the most effective Mourinho we've probably ever seen, even though as yet it's not led to anything spectacular from the results point of view.
The key question for me on that, and I agree with it. I watched the United game against Stoke, and afterwards I wasn't saying when people were laughing at Mourinho's comments in the light of the draw in terms of saying it was the best performance of the season. I thought it was a ridiculous thing to laugh at because the right time to say that is when your side's played well and just not had any luck in front of goal. And exactly the same way as the right time to criticise your side is when you've just got a 2-1 win away at Swansea when you haven't played well for a half. But that's the right time to remind everyone of the expectations, and that's just good management as far as I'm concerned. But this is the key question for me as to which Man United are we going to get against Liverpool on Monday night? Are we going to get the Man United that plays Herrera, that plays Pogba and Mata, that has a front three of Ibrahimovic, Rashford, Lingard or Martial? Or are we going to get the Man United which basically plays Marouane Fellaini and sets its stall out along those sorts of lines? Which one do you think we're going to get?
I would be very surprised if you don't see a lot of height, elbows and hair in that side. I think it'll be, the full-on Fellaini, Pogba, it'll be height, it'll be strength, it'll be, I think it'll be a powerful team. But then I remember thinking that one year under Van Gaal, thinking he'll do that because that's really what you have to do to go and win at Liverpool. And then he turns up and, if I remember rightly, Herrera and Mata played you off the pitch.
Yeah, ran the show. That's what I mean. I mean, that'd be the key thing for me is which way you go on that. That's a key question, I reckon. And, in many senses, I think we're probably more likely to win the game if he goes with the first side. But I think Man United are more likely to put in a full Man United performance and also still possibly win the game because these are all good footballers that I'm referring to. They're really, really good footballers. Yeah. It'd be a bit of a shame, I think, if he does go with elbows.
The thing I can't get out of the back of my mind, though, right, is I think he'd have been quite prepared to go there and throw caution to the wind had we not lost to City at home. I think ultimately that I know hurts. He'll know that hurts supporters. He'll know that this getting beat there will hurt supporters. So I can't see him thinking I can afford to go there. Now, I think if most United fans, if you said United are going to go there, they're going to throw absolute hell for leather at you and, get beat 4-3. We wouldn't like the result, but we'd like the fact that, that was United having a good old go, a proper good tear-up. I think he'll probably think, I can't afford to lose that game of football because I've already lost to City at Old Trafford. The last thing I want In front of all of these people, he's been very, very welcoming and very, very accepting of me. I don't want to just sort of go there and then get turned over. So I think he's going to do whatever it takes to not lose that game of football. However, I've got no issue with the height thing and the strength thing and the elbow thing, because the one thing I think Mourinho, I would put him down as a counter-attacking manager. I think he's one of the best that I think we've ever seen in the game. And I think he'll know that ultimately Klopp is about energy, blood, guts, from the high tempo, throw the kitchen sink at it. And I think he'll be thinking, I've got to try and stave that off for 20 minutes. If I can stave that off for 20 minutes, then, we're probably going to be in a decent place and maybe start to do something. So I think potentially you'll end up with a holding type of United, lots of strength, lots of height. But I think the other thing that I wouldn't be surprised to see is the bench full of that little bit of creativity, that little bit of stardust that unlocks. I can see the Matters, the Herreras, and people like that maybe being in and around the bench if they're not starting, just so that he's got that in his armoury if he needs to bring it on. Because I think if he gets to sort of 20, 30 minutes at 0-0, when Anfield will be absolutely boiling over in terms of atmosphere, Klopp will have sent people out, after 15 cans of Red Bull to go and have a go and just go at you like a lunatic. He'll be happy with that. I think he'll go, if we've tamed that, what he won't want to be is 2 down after 10, 15 minutes, and then he'll be sitting there thinking, do I stick or do I twist it? Do I throw on the cavalry to try and get myself out of this and maybe get a draw, but potentially end up getting beat 4? You know what I mean? It's a really tricky one for him to solve, and ultimately I would expect him, largely because of the game against City at Old Trafford, I think he'll go there with that. First job here is I can't lose, and I think he'll go with that mentality.
All right, huge thank you to Steve Armstrong as ever. And there's a great thing, I'm going to mention it later on in this show as well, a great thing with Steve, Mike Nevin and Rob Gutman to come about the Liverpool-United rivalry up until 1992. That's coming out on Saturday. This obviously is still your Friday show here, working through. Back over to me, Rob and Andy. This is the Anfield Wrap on Radio City Talk, and we're beginning to sort of round up and look towards this game and think about what Liverpool may or may not do for selection from a selection point of view. Mike Nevin, your argument will be change as little as possible. I
think so, yeah. I mean, obviously there's a couple of injury selection headaches for Klopp in that Wijnaldum might not be fit. Lallana hasn't really trained since the injury that he picked up at Swansea, so potentially that both of those miss out. So it's what you do really. I mean, I'd be inclined to drop Coutinho into the midfield, and I'd certainly be playing Sturridge so that you can keep your shape. With the 3 and the 3, if you like. I suppose if Wijnaldum and Lallana both miss out, then there is another place to be filled. So possibly Chan comes in. Although sort of, I just have slight concerns about Chan. Not so much the fitness thing, because he'll have had 2 weeks full training, at home in the lead up to this game, but. I just got my concern with him is just how quickly he does things. It's not a pace over the ground issue. It's more the fact that he likes to take a touch. He likes to pour over the ball and consider his passing. And I'm just not entirely sure that fits the way that we've been playing in the midfield, which is all about quick rotation of the ball, moving it fluently, getting it into sort of, I suppose, more attacking areas quite quickly. And I'm just not sure that. I'm not sure that he's the finest proponent of that style. And yet I'm going to use a literal football example to contradict you. The first goal against Dortmund at Anfield, when he plays 3-1-2s. It's all one-touch football. He's all running forward. I wonder whether or not that's partly the role to a certain extent. Partly, the fact that I think some footballers can look more like that sort of player, but then in action. Maybe you know what I mean, Mike? He looks like if I picture him as a one-touch, get out of my feet, maybe have another look merchant. But I can't think of loads of examples where he shifted it fast. Some footballers leave a lasting impression. And to be fair, there was another really good example at Southampton in the League Cup where he played a lovely ball with the outside of his right foot into Sturridge's path, which is a great piece of vision. I just wonder though with his, I do think he possesses vision, and we've seen Henderson play a lot of those really nice cushioned passes from a deeper lying role. And I just think that if Chan comes in for me, I think where Chan comes in, where I see his position in the squad now is when he gets fully fit, and he's probably approaching that now. For me, he's the deputy to Henderson as the number 6, as Klopp calls it, because I think you have got a little bit more time to be considered on the ball from there. I'm just not sure he's quite suited to the more advanced role in front of Henderson as part of that particular three.
A lot of this stuff, when you write this stuff down, Josh, you end up with giving people certain roles and all that sort of stuff. It might be that, for instance, if Chan does start next to Henderson, he plays that position in a slightly more defensive or slightly more conservative way, but maybe with more aggression in the tackle than, say, Wijnaldum would. Do you know what I mean? That I can see exactly what Mike's point is there, that he does currently look like he's deputising for Henderson unless something significant changes, but it might allow him to be able to express himself a little bit more in other ways, but also just offer Liverpool a little bit more control of the football match.
Yeah, look, I think in an ideal world, Klopp has the time with Chan, as he has over the international break, to ready him to play in this position. I think one of the things about Chan is that you don't really see him as being one of the composed players on the pitch. And maybe he's just a bit too up for a scrap, as in like when we've seen this season, when we've had bodies in front of us, we usually just use like sort of slow build-up play, patience, like we were against Swansea, and knowing we're going to get a chance and going to get a breakthrough. Chan's just almost like, I see bodies in front of me and I'm going to take them out. I'm going to take them out of the way. But the thing is, we're not in this ideal world where Klopp's had all that time, because Wijnaldum got injured on Monday, so Klopp wouldn't have been you'd imagine Klopp wouldn't have been preparing for Chan to actually be coming into the game on Monday. It's
an interesting one, this midfield, Paul. I think it's there's the manager could do something unlikely, could do something unorthodox. I personally think he'll stick with what's been working for him and look to not make the players quite fit it as such, not be cookie cutter with it, for want of a better phrase, but he'll be getting things going.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to try and throw the baby out with the bathwater to make two changes. I think just on Chan, I think it's best part of 6 months since we've seen him in the Liverpool shirt, for 5 months, because we haven't seen him properly start a game since Europa League final. So I think people are probably forgetting quite how good he is. Klopp's just said there that they're not officially out for Monday, but they've only got 4 training sessions left. So if either of them can play, I'd rather see us sort of stick to type. But if Chan has to come in, then I think he's still a good midfielder that he was 5 months ago.
Before every game this season, Mike, you always say this, every football supporter says this, I want to see them start fast, I want to see them start quick. And Liverpool you feel like Liverpool haven't that often, that they've been building into games, but I'm beginning to develop an opinion, and feel free to shoot me down. It is that I think we've got a pace we want to play at, and I think that we're going to play at that pace from the first minute of the game. And I think one of the things that actually happens is we're playing at that pace, let's use it as an arbitrary figure, we're playing at 90%. But we can play at 90% for 75 minutes. Mm-hmm. So our 90%, when the other team is shattered on 55 minutes, looks like we're going absolutely hell for leather. But the reality is, we're looking to play at the same tempo we were looking to play for on minute 1. Mm. And that we haven't, maybe I'm wrong, but we haven't sort of gone into another gear. We haven't moved it along. But there is an argument against United, if we are doing something like that, to almost just go 100% first 20, first 30 with the way the crowd will be, the atmosphere, the way in which Steve Armstrong was saying that United's head that for them it'll be a difficult first 20 or 30. There is actually an argument that if I'm right about that theory, to maybe throw it out a little bit for this one.
There's a few interesting things in what you've said there, because I think if Liverpool, for me, under Klopp, have had something that you could not criticise but observe as a possible weakness, is that they haven't come out the traps on quite a number of big occasions, particularly quickly. And I'll cite one example, the League Cup final against Manchester City, where for a big occasion I thought Liverpool were flat coming out. And if you remember back to the Europa League final, the first 10 or 15 minutes in that game, again we were flat. And I think sometimes that would leave you open to criticism. And against Swansea, at half-time, people were sort of saluting, and rightly so, the way Liverpool came out second half and said, they've had a rollicking there off Klopp at half-time. And me being a little bit devil's advocate on that and say, well, he's allowed to give them a rocket at the start as well. But it may well be that what you've identified there is correct, and that maybe his style, given that of late we've recognised the fact that he likes possession, is that Liverpool grow into games. They start, and the idea of his ideal start is that you keep possession and you build your momentum through that first 15, and that maybe through the middle stretch of a game, maybe from 15 minutes through to 75, you're on blob, and that's when you do your real thrust in attacking football, and that's where you win the game. But you're right. I mean, Monday night, obviously a massive game under the lights. There's something to be said for Liverpool really coming out the traps quickly and trying to blow them away. A bit like, and again, I'll cite a sort of an example from the past. Real Madrid at Anfield 2009, Liverpool came out and absolutely destroyed them in the first 15 minutes, and there was no coming back for them. And I think you can do that in a night game at Anfield. It's, people underplay the influence of crowds on big occasions, and I think, as I say, I think that's massively underplayed. And I think Klopp's an intuitive fella that recognises the difference between United under the lights and, say, Watford at home on a Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock, which might be one of the fixture changes. I don't know.
Josh, on this idea of starting fast, on this idea of starting quick, it's as much for once this one about the opponents. With Hull, you felt as though if Liverpool get amongst Hull, that obviously at some point it'll turn and it'll come and it'll give. You're playing against. It's remembering that you're up against. You've got opponents. The opponents are Manchester United. They're in the position that they're in. They found themselves blown away first half by Manchester City on their own ground. They're not going to want that to happen again, but in the back of their mind, they're going to have the fear that can happen again. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's just the occasion. In these sort of bigger games, you're looking to take the initiative early on, whereas maybe against the smaller teams, which you're expecting to go all out, especially against Liverpool, like we've seen what Burnley did. They're going to go all out for an early goal, so it's just about weathering that early storm, and then you be patient as you gradually grow into the game. Whereas with these sort of bigger games, you need to go and put your stamp on it straight away, and shut their fans up, but also give our fans something to go at in the first couple of minutes.
It is what you need to do. I think, Paul. I think Liverpool do need to start well. I think that the Chelsea game could actually be the marker of what Mike's just said in terms of Liverpool got on top, got in control, ran it, got 1-0 up. That's almost that's the halfway house almost between the idea of a Brendan Rodgers 13-14, they're not going to know what's hit them, boys, versus a slower sort of or more progressed Klopp start is that Chelsea game.
Yeah, Chelsea.
And Chelsea stood off us as well, which United may well do.
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea probably showed us too much respect, but in the sense where I don't imagine Man United will. I just don't think that the nature of the tie will allow that. I think I don't want to see us go 1-0 down. That's a concern. I mean, they've obviously got lads on the pitch and Zlatan or Pogba or whoever who can just throw one in from 25 yards and not even be in the game. So I think that's something I'm quite wary of.
Also, just in that, sorry, Paul, that's when Mourinho knows how to kill a game. If they go 1-0 up, you've always got that danger of where Mourinho's going to start slowing it down and just make it really boring, and that's when the fans are going to start, adapting to that as well. It's going to be exactly the same. That's a bit of my concern, is that he'll quite happily play a bit of a stalemate here, Mourinho, and hope for the best from a set piece or whatever it may be. Where I think Liverpool have just got to be a little bit wary, a little bit patient, and I think we showed that at Chelsea. It's not. I think we scored on 13, 15 minutes, and we sort of don't. Obviously, they scored in the second half, Chelsea, but I think we showed maturity that we didn't maybe have in 13, 14 to be able to see something out.
Prediction, Mike Nevin.
2-1 Liverpool.
Paul Senior.
Same.
Josh Sexton.
I was literally thinking exactly the same.
All going for 2-1, all going for 2-1 Liverpool. Listen, Manchester United are coming to Anfield on Monday night. The manager's expecting it to be an enormous atmosphere. I think everyone is. Manchester United supporters are as well. But Steve Armstrong's already made that crystal clear. Everyone's expecting a huge night of football. Liverpool are primed and ready to go against Manchester United. You'd like to think it should be a terrific game. I can't wait for it, and it's great when the manager comes out as well today, pre-conference, says that all the players are in contention. Joe Gomez gets a big round of applause, and the other thing he says as well is he bodies Ray the fitness egg up the Reds.